Well, Friday afternoon at 5 p.m, my local supermarket is crazy busy. No spaces in the car park, no spare trolleys, massive queues at the tills. Can anyone explain to me why people go there each week at 5 p.m? Me, I avoid the place like the plague. But 6 p.m, amazingly, the store's half deserted. Loads of parking spaces, plenty of trolleys, checkout staff waiting for the next customer. Is this purely a British thing? Are we programmed to queue? How did it all start? I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. In this guide, you'll learn how never to have to queue up to charge your EV ever again. Guaranteed to work every single time. That must surely be worth a click on the subscribe button. Please click subscribe. Well, my memory fails me from my first job as a helicopter pilot in the Royal Navy, but certainly for my second job, I remember clearly I got a pay packet with actual cash in it, small brown envelope, pound notes, even coins in it. I remember it well. There'd be a paper slip inside along with the cash and the hours worked or salary and the pay it contained. That was my responsibility then to go down to the bank in my lunchtime every Friday, paying what I needed to cover my bills. Yeah, we did have direct debits, but they'd been around for over a decade, but they were actually very limited in those days. It's not like today, where virtually everything is on direct debit. We still use cash to a large extent. Because payday was usually a Friday, one of the first tasks after work, before we spent it all, was to get the food in for the weekend. Yeah, we did have checkbooks and check guarantee card, but many of us back then still used cash. Well, I was not the first to arrive. As Friday was a payday for almost everybody, the shops after work were, well, rather busy. But we put up with it. Most of us lived pretty much hand to mouth. We even had a slogan: why is there so much week left at the end of the money? But we coped, and Friday night food shopping was firmly established. But why do we still queue up in 2024 at the supermarket on a Friday night, 5 p.m. after work? It absolutely baffles me. It's not the money. We get a whole month's money all at once a month. It's paid straight into our bank. We open our banking app on that day of the month and we see the balance has increased. We've been paid. Very few people get paid weekly these days. Very few. I suspect almost none get paid weekly in cash. Well, certainly not legal jobs. Many supermarkets also now open 24 hours, excepting for a few hours on a Sunday evening. And when I had young kids, yeah, I did. I ended up with three of them, married with three kids. I would often sit in an evening, bored by the lack of decent telly, and decide to head off out to the supermarket. It could be 10:22 in the evening on a Wednesday, and I could get the majority of the week shopping. Toilet rolls, tins of beans do not go off in a few days. That left just the fresh stuff for Friday, and once again, never went to 5 p.m. as I knew it would be heaving. 6 p.m. in Asda in Falmouth was a very different picture, almost deserted. So why do people choose to queue up to charge their EVs? It completely baffles me. I really would like to find an answer to this. I know when the chargers are really busy. It's not a secret. Many CPOs actually tell you when they're busiest, and really handy when they're the quietest. GridServe certainly does. Osprey does. Tesla does. For goodness sake, even BP Pulse does. Now, I know the comments will flood in. Oh, I'm so busy, I have no choice, etc., etc., etc. As if I was never busy myself. I did work full time. My wife worked full time. The kids went to school. One went to Cubs. One went swimming. At parents' evening, birthday party. The list is endless. I've been there. I've done that. There are 168 hours in a week. We work around 40 of them. The rest is entirely our own time. So if you turn up at the charger at 12 noon or the supermarket at 5 p.m. and you hit massive queues, it's because you choose to. You preferred to sit in watching Strictly or Emmerdale or Great British Bake Off, leaving you only 5 p.m. free for your weekly shopping or 12 noon for your weekly EV charging session. It's your choice. Once again, before the flood of comments arrive, I simply don't believe you. Try this. Here we go. Just for an example, your absolutely favourite of all time pop star or film star announces they're going to be appearing at a local pub 20 miles away in a Meet the Fans event, and you somehow actually get tickets for it. If you go, you're going to meet and shake hands with your idol. I don't even need to finish this thought. Yeah, you'll be there, guaranteed, whatever it took. So my first lesson how to avoid queues ever is don't go when it's busy. It's so simple. If any still persist in saying they cannot go at any other time ever, this video's not for you. To me, that's like stuffing a cream cake into my mouth and moaning about never being able to lose weight. It's in my control. If you honestly believe you can only ever charge at peak time, and you're perfectly happy to sit there for over an hour every time, sometimes in a queue, go for it. So when are chargers busy? Here, as I said, the CPOs really help you. This is GridServe's really helpful guide to avoiding having to queue. Yeah, they actually help you. Let me quote from GridServe. By comparison, 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. will be about 20% quieter, so consider switching your lunchtime sandwich stop for a morning coffee stop or a mid-afternoon snack break. They tell you, please do not charge at peak times. You might have to queue. If you don't listen to me, listen to them. Here's Osprey. Really helpful once again. Even Tesla give you peak usage. Look on your app and you can see the average occupancy. The dark grey bars show you the times generally when the charger is busy, when it's quiet, and the white bar shows not only which pricing band you're in right now, but how busy it is actually now, live. So for Tesla drivers, if you always input your supercharger into your sat-nav that you're heading to in order to allow preconditioning if it's needed, but it's mainly to show you how busy it is. And if it's absolutely heaving, full, short or long wait and you go there, why? Okay, here's a double bonus. If those who do have a choice avoid the busy chargers at peak times, it will free up those chargers for the few people who cannot, or more likely, choose not to. Now, to one critical point that will get an absolute avalanche of comments and violent disagreements. You do not need to charge to 100% every single time. Okay, calm down. I've never found an EV manual that states categorically, definitively, compulsory that you must charge to 100% even if you've got the model with the LFP batteries. So go on, try to prove me wrong. Have a look in your manual. You'll see phrases like, well, ideally, preferably, perfectly, it prefers, it's kinder to the bad, all sorts of things like that. But before you shout at me, let's see what Tesla says about their batteries, and over half of them now are LFP. This is going to surprise you. And I quote, superchargers can add up to 172 miles of range in just 15 minutes. Since charging above 80% is rarely necessary, stops are typically short and convenient. With a broad network of high-speed charging, automatic battery preconditioning, and the exceptional range of every Tesla car, you'll spend even more time out on the road. Did you read that? Above 80%, it's rarely necessary. Now, just for you Tesla owners, you can do this easier. Just had to hammer the message home. Jump in your car right now. Plan a long route anywhere, Rome, doesn't really matter. See what the route planner states about each charging stop. It will plot them for you. None of them, not a single charger stop, will require you to get down to 0% on your arrival at a supercharger, and none, not a single one, will require you to wait there until you're at 100% state of charge on departure. Teslas don't work like that. They don't charge like that. Again, don't listen to me. Listen to the world's largest manufacturer of EVs who make their own batteries. I also have proof. Do you want to see it? Okay, we went to a very busy supercharger, one where we regularly see queues, Burton Wood on the M62. They've got just 8 V2 chargers. These are the old ones, exclusive to Teslas. They're only 150 kilowatt maximum, but they share power between 2 bays. So at busy times, each bay is likely to get nearer to 75 kilowatts. That's it. We arrived, we set up the camera in time-lapse mode and filmed for just under an hour. Results are really interesting. First, when we arrived, there was just one car at the charger. That surprised us because we went there specifically to film queues. Over the next hour, cars came and went, and when we left, there was just one car still charging, and that was not the same one as the one when we got there. That had long since gone. These cars all have 60, 75 kilowatt hour batteries, depending on the model, yet even on reduced charger power, because it's peak time and sharing, no car stayed there for longer than half an hour. Most were considerably less. This is supercharger working at optimum performance. This is how a charger should be used. Now, in comparison, let's go to a grid serve charger. These are great because they have a nice big lit screen showing all the full charging details on the front, and of course I go and photograph and film them. The actual brand of car here is relevant. What's important is the charging times and the state of charge or the percentage. In particular, there's several cars that I filmed that charged up to 100%. Now, let me again quote Tesla here. Above 80% is rarely necessary. So why is this? In a real life example, I filmed an EV at Chester East Services on the M56, and at the time I filmed it, it was at 99% state of charge. It had been charging there for 54 minutes, nearly an hour. It was still charging, but it was down to 2 kilowatt power. With an average size battery, 1% remaining, is just over half a kilowatt hour. And at an average of 3 miles per kilowatt hour, this driver is sitting there waiting another 15, 20, possibly longer minutes to get the last 1.5 miles of range into his or her battery. Is there any intelligence going on here at all? Should you ever charge 100%? Absolutely, particularly if you've got LFP batteries. They love it. If you were in a nice warm restaurant and were having a leisurely meal and were likely to be there over an hour, brilliant, that I can understand. But this is a motorway services. Who sits in a motorway services out of choice having a leisurely meal for over an hour? For most of us, it's in, toilet, eat, toilet, out, half hour maximum. That's all we need. Why would anyone choose to wait a whole hour? Particularly that last half hour, which might only give you 2 miles of range. So back to the 80%. Let's see why every single EV manufacturer states charging time is 10% to 80% or some 20% to 80% in the specifications. Any ideas? Let me help you. If you're charging at home overnight, doesn't matter, just charge up to 100%. Doesn't matter how long it takes, totally irrelevant, no problem. If you're in a nice restaurant and you're having a chat on everything else, a leisurely meal, or you're in a retail park for several hours or a stately home, and you're there for a lot more than an hour, no worries, just charge to 100%. But at a motorway services in the middle of a road trip, oh come on, nobody has ever set a motorway services as a final destination. You are either on a road trip or you've deliberately gone there to charge your EV because you can't charge at home. So who in their right mind on a road trip or a charging trip chooses to charge to 100% and stay there for considerably longer than an hour? Many of you will scream, can't charge at home. I know, I've just said. So we need a reality check here. Most people travel less than 10,000 miles a year, 200 miles a week. The UK average, according to the government, gov.uk, is 7,134 miles a year, 140 miles a week. Most EVs have a range of more than 140 mile, so most people out there who can't charge at home will need to charge once a week. I'm going to suggest right now you charge twice a week. If you're determined to charge to 100%, it will take you well over an hour. We've filmed this on many occasions. Any car, any speed charger, you'll be there over an hour. Switch to 2 charges a week, each about 50%, and you will spend less than half an hour total charging for the 2 trips. If your EV can go 10 to 80% in less than half an hour, as most can, even the dash of spring for heaven's sake, then 10% to 50% is a breeze and incredibly lot quicker. So why is there so much confusion? There are more myths and misconceptions about this than most other things. So let's see what is fact. First, any lithium-based battery regularly charged to 100% and discharged down to zero will deteriorate faster than a battery only ever charged up to, say, 70% and down to 20%. If you want proof of this, just read the Apple iPhone manual. You don't even have to have an Apple iPhone. These are lithium-ion batteries. First, they state that the lithium battery is expendable. It has a limited lifespan. Then look at the life expectancy in number of cycles. Apple quote between 500 for the older models and 1,000 full cycles for a new one. Well, EV batteries last considerably longer. You'll see figures like for the NMC between 1,000 and 2,000 cycles and the LFP between 2,000 and 4,000 cycles. Now, if this worries you, it shouldn't. First, almost everyone uses close to the whole battery and recharges it back up to 100% every single day with a mobile phone. Very few, almost no EVs use a whole battery full every day. The average is 20 miles a day, or about 10% of your battery. At that rate, your EV battery will last 10 times longer than your mobile phone battery. But actually far longer, because they're generally built to last longer. More expensive. Mobile phones generally get replaced far more often than your EV. And talking mobile phones, please use yours now. Click subscribe. We really do appreciate all of those of you who have done so. Thank you very much. And if you're doing it right now, a massive thank you to you. So we learned first that LFP can handle up to twice the number of cycles as NMC. I think most people already understand this. Many people even use that as the reason why they would only ever buy an EV with LFP batteries. You're wrong. Oh, anyhow, come back to that. Second, the lifespan is quite variable, between 1,000 and 2,000 for NMC. Why such a huge difference? Well, a full cycle in this context is going from 0% totally empty to 100% totally full and then back to 0% empty again. If you charge from empty to 50%, then back to empty, that's half a cycle. You need to do 2 of those to count as a full cycle. So before looking a little bit deeper into this, I am going to state that the figures are totally irrelevant in the real world. Most EV batteries are bigger than 50 kilowatt hours, and most modern EVs can exceed 3 miles per kilowatt hour, some a lot more. Even my 8-year-old Tesla Model S does more than 3. So a little bit of maths. Full cycle gives you at least 150 miles, and your battery's good for a minimum, if it's NMC, of 1,000 cycles. 150 times 1,000 is 150,000 miles. So worst case scenario, buy a car with an NMC battery, mistreat it badly, and you're still good for about 150,000 miles. LFP will give you about 300,000 miles. Now, be honest, how many of you have ever kept a new car until it had done 150 or 300,000 miles? Being even more realistic, most of us can never do that because we can't drive till the battery's at zero and then fill it up to 100%. It's not actually possible. So in the real world, we're automatically a bit kinder on our batteries. You could expect a lifespan of maybe 200,000 to 400,000 miles. But this argument is ruined by the fact that the average car in the UK is scrapped at the age of 14 years. Everything else wears out or rusts or fails or deteriorates to such an extent that we scrap it. At 14-year-old and 10,000 mile a year, the battery and electric motors are probably the best bits remaining on your car. So the conclusion of all this, the vast majority of us will never keep an EV long enough to reach the end of the lifespan of the battery. Doesn't matter if it's NMC or LFP. Those who might get near the end of their lifespan should choose LFP and treat their battery a little bit kinder, so they will get nearer to the 300,000 miles before it fails. But remember, the average lifespan of a petrol engine is quoted as 170,000 miles. And to do a full factory-fitted replacement ICE is around the same price as a new battery. Also remember that most cars that are scrapped still have a wealth of usable parts on them. That's how scrapyards make their money. Your battery and electric motor will have quite a good value. Cars do not ever fail completely. Some are written off in an accident, others simply become unsafe to drive or just uneconomical to keep on the road. Well, final thought, if you lease your cars 2 or 3 years, why are you even watching this video? You get an 8-year warranty. You hand it back after 2 or 3. I'm Dave.